items of the agricultural code update, CPA 16. Do we need to actually arise here? Do we need to say anything about it?
Only if you have any questions.
Okay, I'll ask board members in a moment. Just to clarify for the public, this is a docket item, and we're only taking public comment on a kind of narrow piece of it, not the more policy-oriented decisions to be made about zoning and what soils to include and all that. But there are some more technical related code amendments that will be hearing public comment on today at 3:30. Any questions from board?
We are live streaming now.
Okay, we just started the live stream, so very good.
Recording stopped.
Okay, so we're in the very, very beginning of the agenda setting work session here for January 16th. Any questions from board members about public hearing? That'll happen at 3:30. Okay, next is to review the proposed agenda for next week's meeting. The meeting would be called to order at 2 p.m. We would have a pledge of allegiance to be led by Commissioner Mejia. We would look at approving the agenda and have an opportunity for the public to address the board. County manager update.
None at this time.
At this time, any questions from board members on any of those preliminary items? Okay, consent items. It says A through C, but there's only A. So we'll make that change to just say Commissioner item, consent item A, which is 3A, Public Works item, appointment to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
Yes, good morning. This item is to appoint Trevor Palmer as the City of Yelm representative on Thurston County's Solid Waste Advisory Committee. And I would turn to Jeff if there is any additional information or questions from the board.
And good morning, commissioners. Jeff Bickford, Solid Waste Manager. I don't have anything else to add to this. It's the council member Palmer was appointed by Mayor DePinto. So I'm willing to answer any questions.
The new commissioners will learn that each advisory board has a very specific way that some people get appointed. And some of them, in the case of this one, the municipalities actually appoint their person, and we're kind of, in a sense, rubber stamping an appointment from the municipality. In this case, the City of Yelm has a seat on that committee, and they've appointed, it sounds like the mayor has appointed Trevor Palmer, and we would be approving that so that he can take that seat. Any questions on that appointment? Nope, okay. Then we'll go to department items. 4A, contract for federal government relations assistance.
So this item is extending the contract with Strategies 360. Commissioners may recall that this is the group that we've contracted with for federal lobbying and assistance to identify federal money. S360 has met with offices and departments, created a list of funding opportunities, and is ready to move to the next phase where they assist us with applications for federal earmarks. The board included funding for this for 2024, and we will be assessing as we go if there is any success in using this consultant in actually obtaining federal funds.
What kind of history do we have with federal earmarks? Have we?
None.
None?
We've had very little success. Did we get one? I think we got one award last year.
That was from Senator Cantwell, or for that project
Yeah, I
over
thought
on
it was
by Tyson.
Strickland, but yeah, there's.
$3 million or something for that
Was
project,
it
Green Cove.
transportation project.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But other than that, we've been very unsuccessful, and so we've reached out for help.
Okay. And we're looking, and this is for primarily transportation? No, I just read that wrong.
Actually,
It's saying plus transport. This isn't for transportation projects. This is just,
this is very
be
broad.
determined.
So we're going to this year go for assistance for the fairgrounds, and I think environmental support is on there. Election security, I'd have to look at the list. There's a short list because we are limited in the number that the county can submit
Yeah,
to each congressional member, so
how so?
they limit us. Usually it's 2 is the most, for that the entire county can submit 2 applications, so.
Not $2 million.
Oh, no, not $2 million, 2 applications, so, I mean, we don't wanna waste our chance, and Strategies 360 is gonna help us package it, sell it,
Yeah,
you know.
I immediately think
try
of
to get
regional
it
corrections. Right,
I'll have to look and see what's on the short list.
yeah. Because if it's a regional request and it's a big one like that, it might be,
I understand, but part of what the consultants are doing is helping us assess what might sell.
yeah.
And I don't think jails are a very successful, opportunity. So, more on that.
There's a lot of disconnect to the bipartisan infrastructure
A lot of
legislation and all the
information out of
climate money
that, yeah.
for projects of climate resilience that are in that.
Right.
So that, but they'll help us figure out what are our best 2 proposals to put forward.
That is part of what they're doing, yes.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Item 5A, Public Works Contract Award for Moderate Risk Waste Transportation and Disposition Management Services for Hazel House. Lots of words.
So, this is award of the contract. Hazel House collects moderate risk waste, and we need a vendor who will transport and dispose of the waste that's collected at Hazel House. Hazel House has approximately 25,000 customers and collects about 100 tons of waste. This contract is for monthly disposal. The board approved an RFP and 2 bids were received. They were scored based on qualifications, including experience, past performance, references, technical approach, rates, and other factors. This winning bidder is 1.5 million to Clean Harbors Environmental Services of Norwell, Massachusetts. And we ask that the board authorize the Director of Public Works to execute the contract.
Jeff, anything else you need to know?
I believe the acting county manager took care of that pretty well. I just want to make sure that the 1.5 million is for the 5-year period. So essentially it'd be approximately $300,000 a year. So and this would be an annual agreement with a renewal every year for that 5 years total. And willing to answer any other questions.
Any questions? Hearing none, thank you. Move on. 5B is also Public Works Contract Award for Yelm Rainier Tenino Trail Restroom Replacement Project.
This item is also the award of a contract, this one for construction of the restroom replacement project on the Yelm Rainier Tenino Trail. This project is a 4-stall commercial grade vandal-resistant restroom. The current facility is not ADA compliant and does not have these features and requires quite a bit of maintenance. So this will reduce maintenance cost. The project also includes 440 feet of sidewalk. 9 bids were received, and this award under Public Works laws is awarded to the low bidder. So again, we ask that the Director of Public Works be authorized to execute this contract.
Any questions?
And this is for one in Rainier, or?
Yes, this one's for in Rainier.
Okay. Are there any plans for ones in Yelm or Tenino? Because they're, I know equally.
I'm not this time. I can talk with our parks manager and see if he has any plans for Yelm or Teninos.
Can't tell you, we're getting pretty good at these. We did one Burfoot Park. We just finished one at Kennydale Park.
Are these prefabbed kind of?
These are prefabbed.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a pretty slick system.
Yeah.
And we're getting the hang of it, so, we have a pretty efficient project delivery process now.
Awesome.
Okay, Commissioner McGinn.
I just want to make a comment. The one in Burfoot Park is very nice, and it, you know, it's pretty efficient.
I gotta go check that out. Okay, thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Next up is Public Health and Social Services, item 6A, Amendment 18 to the Washington Department of Health Consolidated Contract for 22 to 24.
Yes, this item is, as you stated, an 18th amendment to the consolidated contract, also known as the CONCON. This is an additional $333,000 roughly. This funding is earmarked for specific items. So new items that the money provides for include syndemic prevention services. Syndemic was a word that I had to look up. It means more than one endemic disease happening at one time. It also includes funding for HR, for public health infrastructure, the tuberculosis program. There are also amendments in this amendment to the CONCON, including funding for foundational public health, infectious disease prevention, drug user health, immunizations included the COVID-19 vaccine, perinatal hepatitis B assistance, and funding to improve vaccination rates. So we are requesting that the board authorize the Director of Public Health to sign this amendment to the CONCON. And David's here to answer questions you may have.
David Bain, Director of Public Health Social Services. Good morning. Anything you'd like to tell us about this?
Good morning. Apologies. I'm in my car, just coming back from the state capitol. The interim county manager did a great job describing our amendments there. I think you'll see probably 3 or 4 more before the year ends for this particular contract. I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Questions on the CONCON Amendment 18? Nope, sounds like we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and that concludes the business agenda for the meeting of January 23rd. We will have standing items, commissioners report on work sessions, for actions taken, reviewing our combined schedule, and adjourning.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
could I bring up one issue on 4A? Just a quick question.
Yep.
And this would be for Robin. That $60,000, it seems like that, I remember that was coming out of the general fund to make that happen. Because that's going to benefit all aspects of county government. Is there any reason that couldn't be our 60-40 split?
It is. Not. It is not. And I, you know, thank you. It took me a minute to remember. It's a non-departmental, and it would normally be the 60-40 split. The reason that it can't be is because it involves lobbying the legislature, and anything having to do with lobbying cannot be charged to grant funds. And a lot of our funds are heavily funded in grants.
Could
when
be
we
something out of road fund though. We're hoping to build a bridge and all that kind of stuff.
We can look at how we might be able to
Possibly
allocate
share
it.
the activities so we aren't always draining our general fund.
The hope is that once we start to see money coming in, we can charge it to what we're receiving. But at this point in time, it's considered a lobbying activity.
Okay.
Okay, very good. So going back to our agenda for this morning, next is proclamations and awards. No updates, we covered a bunch of stuff last week, so. Let's go to advisory boards and commissions.
That came in, and I think a couple people that checked in on their planning commission applications, but I'm sorting through those, so I don't have
Okay,
Yeah. I was just notified over the weekend that there'll be vacancy on the Board of Equalization. Some health problems an individual has. So that's coming up. I just pass that out. Anybody's interested in it.
and then planning commission, we had, if I remember right, we just had Commissioner Klaus got her person snagged by the Olympia City Council. So we have one at large there and you have one at large.
I need to have a conversation with Emily because I think that there's a way forward.
Okay. Just checking in on terms of, we've got though, like planning commissions, I think, meeting this week and they've got, they should have 8 people
I think so.
that they can go forward, do business. That should be good. Okay, very good. There's no other questions there, and I'm not seeing any, then we'll go to PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have no specific updates this morning. I'm hoping to have good information about hiring for the 2 positions next week.
Okay. Any questions for Megan?
Is that what you guys were doing interviews for last night?
Yes, so
Exciting.
on Friday, we were doing interviews for the
Right.
video production, and then I'm looking at applicants for the internal focused communications person this week.
Okay, update next week on that. Then that takes us to legislative check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. The legislative tracker before you is been refined since the last time you saw it. I took some of the feedback that the board provided and that you'd like to have a more robust description about what the specific bills are. That way it's all in one place. You don't necessarily have to click through.
See what you spent your weekend doing.
And hopefully with the current status, and I went ahead and eliminated some of the, we'll call them extraneous bills, that may have just sort of been clogging it up. So hopefully this is refined, move some of them specifically into the priority areas around fiscal sustainability, and our shared interests. And so this tracker before you, hopefully that, let me know if you want to see it continue to be refined, but some of the priority areas, as we know this week, last week started with a flurry of hearings, but this week specifically, there are 2 bills that we are focused on this morning. Commissioner Mejia was able to provide testimony on our public health composition bill, public health composition bill in the House, or the Senate, sorry, tomorrow is the House. And Commissioner Menser will be there for us. The Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock, there will be a bill on Senate Bill 5770. That, as a reminder, is the bill that the coalition that Thurston County has joined up with, specifically is addressing the 1% property tax cap. And so we are looking to have a commissioner who might be willing to come and lend the Thurston County voice on Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock. It is not the first bill based on their current agenda, so just we would have to bear that in mind. It may start at 4, but I don't know when exactly that bill will come up for a hearing. But we can get whomever talking points, and we'll go from there. Make sure
Will there be other counties reps there as well?
I am anticipating in my conversation with Deborah is that WASAC LSC is meeting on Thursday, so I would imagine this will be a big part of the conversation, and likely there will be some volunteer from the commissioners that are in attendance to step in as well. But as of what I saw in the sign-up the other day, it's lightly sprinkled with pro individuals. There's mostly cons signed up. Even Mr. Iman signed up twice. So there's more cons than pros, but it would be good to sort of.
Speaking of cons. So speaking of cons. That's inappropriate.
So, yeah, that would be great to be able to have a commissioner there at that meeting and sort of lend our local perspective as well.
What about the striker position of eliminating the state from getting in on that action?
Right,
That would be a big piece of why people would support it.
it would, and it's likely would happen. I think what I've heard is that they'll look to do that type of amendment in the committee before it gets voted out. Because yes, that was one of the main points of contention, was that the way it's currently written, that the state would also be able to benefit or adjust to the 3%, and that was the main point of contention. And so the idea is to remove the state from that flexibility and just leave it to local jurisdictions as well as junior taxing districts.
They're not subject to the same cap. I mean, you always hear about when
They had raised the cap for the state, but that was on limited time, so it has reimposed itself, is my understanding. They are back to the 1%, the state. So there was a time following the education court rulings where they needed to make more money, and they removed the 1% cap from the state levy calculation, but apparently that had a sunset date. So it is my understanding at this time that the state is currently under the 1% cap.
Okay. That must be kind of recent because
It
we
is.
had that whole thing with the assessor sending out a letter to all taxpayers because when the year that assessments went way up, county was not getting any of that money, but people's property tax was going up, not the same percentage as their property value, but certainly higher than 1%.
Yes.
And that was because the state at that time
Had
did not have
excused
that.
itself from the cap.
But that's
right.
gone snapped back into place. I didn't realize
That is my understanding.
But
We
there
can
was
double
also a
check.
time when, Brandy, we've got someone. There was also that same time where everybody felt the impact of, after McCleary, sort of that whole state common schools portion of it, that really went up quite a bit. So there were a lot of different things happening at the same time that impacted people's property tax statements. So I don't know in terms of the timing, without looking into that, as to which came first.
Commissioner Mejia, do you want to report on how it went today on the Board of Health?
It went fairly smooth. We got stuck behind one of the bigger public hearings that they had this morning, so that's why it was delayed. But other than that, it went pretty smooth. We were the only people testifying, and we did clarify that it did not include Spokane County. That was one of the main questions, and clarified that Spokane County has a public health district, so it would not include them.
How much time were you given to speak?
It was 90 seconds.
Okay.
90 seconds goes by fairly quick. I was speed reading there towards the end.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for being there.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, just one of the other bills I wanted to bring to the board's attention is Senate Bill 5844. We've talked about sort of the cost and the impact of RVs and the disposal of them. There actually is a bill coming forward which will create a voluntary grant program to help provide funding to counties to administer a dilapidated RV disposal program. So the details are predominantly there, but this, as with many things that come before the legislature, will be dependent upon appropriation. So they are proposing about $2.5 million be added to that the Department of Ecology would administer. But as with all of those, it's reimbursement. There's probably a lot of competition for those $2.5 million. May sound like a lot, but it won't be when it comes to each jurisdiction trying to access those funds. But it's more than what we have right now, and as we have ongoing conversations with the towing and disposal companies, that is probably one of the biggest impediments is the cost that they end up bearing to do that disposal.
Is that one that you're suggesting we support, or? So you'll change, you want the board to give you a thumbs up?
A thumbs up would be great, and we can update our tracker on that.
Well, I'm not sure on that until the wrecking folks tell us that they're concerned about that fund being dilapidated, along with the dilapidated RVs, and that they might not have any money to pay for removing the RVs out of that fund. So there's some balancing that needs to be done there. And I don't know exactly where that's at. Do you know who's negotiating with the, there's a wrecker association or wrecking yard association? Some kind of a professional group there.
I can follow up and see if I can find out who's involved.
Is that, are you alluding to that? We are the only ones carrying the water on that issue?
No. No,
The
this is,
Association of Counties is working that, isn't it?
I don't know.
And municipalities, I thought.
Probably this impacts everyone.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that there's a lot of interest around it, but given our prior conversations, this was one that sort of popped up on the radar that I thought might be of interest.
Well, it is, but it's got some conflicting issues taking place.
Well, I can look into those a bit more and see.
I'm not understanding the issue.
Something to do with there's only so much money that comes in on that fund. And now, there's a reason that this fund has some money in it. One of the reasons is the bureaucratic process to get paid what they're owed through the system in place today takes maybe up to 6 months. And that's what, there's quite a big delay, and a lot of outfits are frustrated by, they don't have the ability to go get the junk RV and wait the 6 months to be paid for the process. So there's some holdup, something at the state level. I don't have all the answer. I just know there's quite a concern.
Yeah, I think the way I've read this, and I'll double back and make sure, but this is appropriating additional funds, but actually puts, it would be another further conversation for the board in terms of participation. It may actually put the county as sort of the middle entity between the
So we'd
disposal
have
or
to,
haulers.
we'd
We
have
would
to
have to
front the
potentially
money?
front the money and then get reimbursed from the state, which opens other issues for the county as a overall. But it does appropriate more funds. But I'll track down more information and bring it back.
Any other bills that you wanted to talk about, Rob?
I think they're pretty self-explanatory. A lot they've already been, this week is very busy for hearings. Several bills have already been exec'd out of their committees, and we'll see what the floor schedule ends up being. But the policy cutoff for the House of Origin is the 31st of this month. And then, of course, the getting out of the House or their respective chambers will be the middle of, I think, the 13th of February. So it is very fast and furious. So we'll see how that continues to play out.
Any legislative questions from the board? Okay, thank you. And let's move to item 7. There's nothing there for briefing, public hearings pending, so we go to item 8, Commissioner items. Number 1, sub-item 1 is opioid abatement council representative, appointment of a commissioner.
Yes, so The board may recall that we have been receiving settlement funds from opioid lawsuits, and there had been an agreement with the cities that the board signed that at the time, the impression of the county was that we would be pooling the funds and doing joint proposals with the cities of Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater. It came to our attention that the agreement wasn't quite what we had understood it to be, and each of the cities thought that, much like the regional opioid abatement council, that there would be opioid abatement council for Thurston County and the 3 cities that would only meet once a year, but each jurisdiction would spend its own money. So we approached the cities and said, hey, wouldn't it be more beneficial for us to move forward with the money pooled? And the big concern was that the cities want say over how their money is spent. So we reached an agreement with the city managers. I talked to them, and we agreed that if we set up the opioid abatement council for Thurston County, where there is one elected representative from each jurisdiction on the governing board or the council, and that body would make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, who would have ultimate approval of how the fund is spent on an up or down vote. Then the cities would agree to pool the money. So I asked Scott Cushing if he would please work with the city attorneys to revise the interlocal agreement. We had that conversation just last week or 2 weeks ago, just very recently. And so he's gonna reach out to the attorneys and start that process. And we would now like to move forward with seating the Opioid Abatement Council. So if all of that makes sense to you, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about that. But we would like to know which commissioner would be on this Opioid Abatement Council. And I believe that the plan had been for you, Commissioner Mincer, but we just wanted, it's been a while, so we wanted to check in and then we'd get things going. Katie will staff it. Katie Stroik will staff the council, and the first order of business of the council would be to become familiar with how the money is allowed to be spent.
How much money is it? How much money is it?
Oh, how much money? I'm sorry, I don't have that.
Is that 2-9's money he's that he rounded up through litigation?
It's the county's
I know
money,
it's not
but
federal,
yes,
right?
it's not Mr. Toonheim's
Well,
money.
it was
but
actually
it's,
outside
a
counsel
pretty
that
good
did
amount.
it on behalf of many jurisdictions,
Yeah,
counties,
and we
cities.
joined in.
Correct. It's Keller
Right.
Rohrbach that actually did the litigation.
So let me see if I can quickly look up how much it is.
In the meantime,
Katie
Commissioner,
might have that information. She is on the screen.
Katie, do you have insight as to the amount of money we're dealing with?
Thank you. I was actually just gonna double check. They haven't given us the final numbers. There are multiple settlements that pay into this, from distributors and manufacturers and things like that. There's an online portal that the county can access to see how much our individual payments are and how much they'll be distributed in chunks for. Some of the payments are over 17 years, some are over 15, some are over 13, and I believe some are over 7. So while they have a ballpark amount of how much we'll actually receive overall, the payments are not consistent in any way. Some of the settlements are front loaded, and some of them are equally distributed, and some of them are distributed over double the amount of time. But I can double check on the last ballpark numbers that we've got and get them over to interim county manager as soon as possible.
So could you give us a rough number, Katie? Do you have
Are-
that handy?
If you give me about 30 seconds, I can get it.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Commissioner Mejia, whose hand I see, and then I'll go back to Katie.
Thank you. I was wondering, don't we have another settlement pending with, and which was alluded to being like the bigger one?
Yes, if that organization does not go bankrupt. But we are not done seeing the settlements roll in. It's just a
Okay.
matter of when they settle and how it's structured.
And it would all go through this committee, even
But
this other
yes,
settlement?
yes, because the way the state agreement is written, we're just parties to this agreement. But the way the state wrote the agreement, and really it's part of a national agreement, is that there are very restricted ways that we can use the money. And it is, we have to have these opioid abatement councils. We were directed to have them in regions. We have agreed with the other counties that involved in our region that the Regional Opioid Abatement Council will meet once a year. Its only function is to review any reports that are submitted. And so far, the only reports that I've seen that are required are if you spend the money in a way that's not allowable. So there's not going to be any reports. And we've asked David to be our representative on the regional council. But within Thurston County, that's where we're going to take this money and pool it and use it in a way that will benefit the whole county. The numbers that Katie's going to share with you will be, so to finish your question, every settlement that rolls in falls under this compact. And we're restricted on how we spend the money. Whatever the council decides to do has to be in line with the state plan. So that's part of what the council will be looking at.
Is the ILA already in place?
There is an ILA in place that says that each jurisdiction will spend its own money, but we're going to amend the ILA so that we can pool the money.
Okay, you'd mentioned it would be comprised of 3 cities in the county.
Yep.
That doesn't represent the entire county and all the jurisdictions in Thurston County.
So not
Is there a
every,
reason that Yelm and the other smaller cities wouldn't be included?
they're not receiving any of the money.
Okay.
So only the jurisdictions that are receiving money are included in this ILA and the abatement council. And that's required by the compact.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know if it's required that the chair be Commissioner Klaus had reached out to me with interest in this. After hearing that exciting description of the business, Commissioner Klaus, are you still interested in being a representative?
Apparently so.
Yep.
Absolutely, yes. It sounds extremely exciting.
Okay. Well, that level of enthusiasm convinces me that she's the right choice.
Great.
Does anybody else have interest in serving on this?
Okay, and Katie, did you find the rough numbers?
Yeah, so it looks like it's going to be about 14 million total once the 4 jurisdictions all pool their money, with about 10 million of the 14 dispersed to the county directly. So about 4 million combined from Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater, and then 10 from Thurston for a total of 14 over the 17 years. But we're not in year 1 either for year 17. We're in I think about year 3 at this point.
Right.
So are we giving up say on $10 million to include an additional 4 million?
So the deal is that the 4 members of the abatement council will make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And commissioners will have an up or down vote. If you don't agree with what the council comes up with, then you would send that back to the council to revise. The concern of the cities is that that the Board of County Commissioners would take things off or just add things on. And we are pooling the money for the greatest benefit. Now, for example, the city of Tumwater is getting a very small amount of money, probably 100,000, just a really small amount. So we want the biggest bang for the buck across the whole county. And so, you know, are you?
Well, Northern County that gets the money.
It's going to benefit South County too. Our representative on this council will be speaking for the entire county, not just North County.
I mean, with all due respect, that's been the theory for the last, 60 years, but that hasn't always been the case. But, I mean, I get the argument if it's like equal shares going in, but if I don't know. I can hear, well, if Yelm's not contributing, Yelm's got issues too, and I'm sure that they'd love to have a seat at the table. And, if the argument is, well, they're not contributing, but when I look at this, most are, 4 million is a small portion that the cities are contributing and they still get a seat at the table to have access to an additional $10 million. It seems like, it makes me more comfortable saying, yeah, there should be more, representation for other cities if, but, okay. I don't know. Maybe just one South County city gets a seat and not 4.
Commissioner Edwards, you saw your hand.
I'd just like to point out that sometimes these trust issues are affected by things like, we adjusted the treatment sales tax recommendations here a while back. Mm-hmm. And that word gets out. So that's the hesitancy.
This was long before that.
No, I'm just saying.
But you're right.
Trust is a big piece of it. Just my 2 cents worth.
So originally the cities wanted an arrangement, I'm gonna start comparing them to other organizations. They wanted an arrangement like LOT where the money did not, or the choices did not come back to the Board of County Commissioners. But
yeah, no way.
We wouldn't agree with that because we're putting in over 70% of the money. So, so this was a negotiated agreement where the council makes recommendation to county commissioners, and then you've got an up or down vote.
Just like Regional Housing Council, that's
Just
where
like
we
the
landed
Regional
on that
Housing
negotiation.
Yep.
And that was because of broken trust in the past. Okay, well, as far as, I guess we could continue to have,
Membership,
the ILA is still to be developed.
We're working on that, yeah.
Can our commissioner have 70% weight on the vote?
No, they're not. You get the final say. I mean, if they send you a package
If you don't like what they
of
say,
things that you can just say no.
Good luck with that.
And send it back for more consideration.
Commissioner Mejia?
Robin, I'm wondering, when we had the discussion at the mayor's meeting, right, one of the things we discussed is like, why create a new group and instead, right, do one where it was already in existence. And
Right.
I'm wondering where that conversation landed with the city managers.
So they are very interested in how we collapse the OAC with the opioid task force. I had a very brief conversation with Rob and David, who think that there are reasons to not do that. We are bound by the compact in the structure of the OAC, so there's, it's something we're going to explore. How can we make it so there's not just yet one more committee meeting that people have to attend, to address the issues that were brought up in that meeting? We're working on it. I've not forgotten. And the city managers didn't forget either.
Thank you. I guess for me, like, I don't mind the opioid abatement council and the forming of that. But what I guess what I don't want to see is multiple groups who have kind of the same emphasis working on the same strat, and like staff having to repeat that that multiple times, right? So I mean, it's really going to fall on Katie to work with these different groups where the information's basically the same, but I don't know, just the repetitiveness of it. So if there is a way that we can kind of remove that duplication, like that would be okay. Like,
yeah. We've not forgotten, Commissioner Mejia. We'll work on that.
So what needs to be decided today?
Today we just needed who the representative would be, and we've got Commissioner Klaus.
Okay, then let's move on.
Will there, can it be any consideration given to my grievance, my little grievance?
About, we can look at what's required, and I can talk to the city managers, but at this time that it's, we're following what the state has laid out in the form that we have to form the OAC.
That's not my grievance would be
I'm so
expanded
sorry.
Membership.
Yeah. Yes, that's in accordance with the compact.
Okay, let's go to items 8, subsection 2, DNR letter requesting a meeting. I see a draft here. Right out of the gate, I'd like to tweak this letter.
Please do. That's why we brought it today.
And I think what this relates to is in the letter that they sent in December saying we didn't get our acres included in their program, they said if we want to discuss with them additional tools that we could use, we could set up a meeting. So we're saying, so this letter is just intending to say, yes, we're still
we want a meeting.
We're still not satisfied. We want to continue to discuss tools with you. This was also recommended to us at the climate meeting that Commissioner Klaus and I attended when Conservation Northwest folks came and gave kind of some advice about how to proceed forward. And they said to make sure we continue to engage on this. Even if we're working on other fronts, we need to continue to engage on this front. So I would just change this letter, and I'll do maybe a revision and circulate it. But I don't want to cross issues up. This is not about the fact that they're cutting. This is really about the failure to include and the reasons that were given about not including us in the Climate Commitment Act program. So I might just change that first paragraph a little bit, expand it. And then the question for the board would be, are you comfortable requesting, in further engagement with DNR since they invited it? Commissioner Edwards.
This is made out to Mr. Welker.
Todd.
But it says Supervisor Davis. I just wonder if that isn't a clerical.
Yeah, we've got two different names there. Yeah, we'll fix that. Thank you.
I mean, yeah, why not talk to him?
Yeah.
I guess that's the gist of it.
Commissioner Mejia.
I have lots of comments, but I know we have an executive session in regards to this. So I'll hold the majority of my comments for that time.
Okay.
But I do want to say that if we're going to request a meeting, I would actually like to have a discussion instead of a presentation to the board. The past times where DNR has come in front of the board, we've never really had an opportunity to actually have a meaningful discussion or a discussion on the strategies that we can implement given our concerns, given our priorities in terms of old forest growth protection. If we're going to request a meeting, I would actually like to have your questions.
Okay, I will include that element in my revised draft of this letter, and you can take a look at it. I think that's a good suggestion. Commissioner Edwards.
I only got about half of that, but I think you've got a little more of it. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is if we've got an hour meeting, we don't want an hour presentation of PowerPoint. We want
A dialogue.
75% of the time to be devoted to questions and discussion.
Well, I would suggest no PowerPoint at all and have a discussion.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
and is there anything in there, as we're talking about that we could reflect on any type of a reduction to the junior taxing districts that might take place and how that might be addressed? Because I think that's an important issue that come about if we were to be successful in limiting.
Okay, well, that might be just a topic for the conversation itself.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to keep the letter super simple, but just change the emphasis a little bit.
This was to ensure that we get a response out
Okay.
and that asks for a meeting, and then we can shape the meeting from there. But we more than welcome your edits, and we'll get you the electronic version so you can mark it up.
Okay. Everybody okay with that? Seeing head nods. All right, so there'll be a second draft circulating related to this, but we all seem to be in agreement to go ahead and request. I see Commissioner Klaus's thumb. Thank you. That takes us to item sub 3, which is an executive session. You ready to jump into that?
So we have 3 executive sessions, and we're going to, once we stop live streaming, we're just gonna roll through all 3. And we are going a little faster this morning than I had anticipated, so Travis has not joined us yet for the DNR portion. I'd like to suggest that we start with number 5, which I think is going to be a short conversation, and then move back. We have the undersheriff with us this morning, so maybe we could move through these backwards if the right people show up when they're supposed to.
5, 4, and then 3.
That is my proposal.
Should we take
Can
a
Oh,
break?
we could take a break and go in the other way. Commissioner Mejia's got, yes, ma'am.
Sorry, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Can I, Chairman, sir, can I make a request for other commissioner items since we're ready to go into executive session?
To cover them now?
Yes. I just have one item.
I have 2 as well if we're doing
I
that.
have one as
Well,
well.
I've got about 6. But however you want to do it.
But we could do that because we're doing well on time this morning.
Okay, well, then let's take up some commissioner items and then we'll see how long. Before I do that, how much time we think we need for the 3 executive sessions combined? It says here an hour.
Right, about an hour and 15 minutes.
So you're saying an hour and 15 minutes?
Hour 15.
So that gives us about a half an hour for a break plus commissioner items. So let's take up some commissioner items and it sounds like we have enough time for everything.
Yep.
Okay, Commissioner Mejia, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. My commissioner item is more of a request to the board. as we've heard, there's been a sweep. I had a conversation with City Manager Walk and Robin and Rob were in that conversation. In regards to the sweep and the list that they have and when the cleanup is going to take place, my request, as well as Commissioner Klaus' request, was that before they completely sweep that item, I was hoping that the Regional Housing Council could meet before and come up with a strategy on what to do with the folks that are left over on the encampment, and come up with a short-term strategy as well as a long-term strategy in order to address it. What I'd heard is that while they were giving notices of trespass, they would have enough time, just because of how long the process takes to go through before they would be removed and the Regional Housing Council would be able to meet. However, there was a notice posted by Department of Enterprise on the encampment saying that they were going to be doing a cleanup of the camp on January 17th. And so there's just a lot of confusion going on with the different organizations that are helping out with the people who are there as well. And so I was hoping that you as the chair, as well as Commissioner Klaus as the representative for the Regional Housing Council, can meet with a representative from the city of Lacey and get some clarification on what's going on in that encampment. Who is doing the cleanup? Is it Lacey or is it Department of Enterprise Services? Like, what is going on? And then maybe report back to the board and hopefully include Keely and Tom into that conversation as our housing staff. I was trying to get information from them, and they were also just getting information, by the second at that time as well. So they couldn't provide me any new guidance on it.
Right, we have the briefing on Wednesday on this, and we're reaching out, that's just tomorrow, to see if Tom and Keely can be here, and the city of Lacey will be sending a representative.
Grant Beck and Chief Almada will be able to attend.
Okay, sounds like the request from Commissioner Mejia, as I understood it, was to try to find something out today because there sounds like there may be actions tomorrow that's going to cause confusion as posted by DES, and B, we might like to have an updated information so that we can discuss it at our meeting tomorrow at 10. So I can make an effort to reach out to Lacey's staff.
So we had this conversation on Friday with Rick Walk.
And what did he say anything related to the things Commissioner Mejia just mentioned?
Yes, and Commissioner Mejia was part of that conversation. So Rick said that this was an agreement long in the making with the Department of Enterprise Services, who I believe owns the land, and that the timing cannot be changed.
I think we can probably reach out just to get clarification too about whether the notice about a cleanup is different than potentially clearing, which
that's
right.
Yes, thank you, Rob. And so that's my question, because what Rick said at that meeting is that basically while they were giving notice of trespass, that Lacey would still have to go through the court process, and that took a couple of weeks to take place, right? Before there would be any removal. However, there is a notice posted on, from Department of, Enterprise Services saying like, that there was going to be, like a cleanup taking place. And, I think there's just a lot of mixed signals going on. And, for me, I know that, the community feels the same way. Just a clarification, on what is going on. Is it just a cleanup? Because the notice says that people have to, gather their stuff and leave. And so are they going to be removing people at that time? And it's just, Commissioner Klaus, I know you were in the encampment over the weekend. Any other details you would like to add?
Yes, just a quick point of clarification on, Robin mentioned that DES owns the land, but I thought that Ecology owned that land. Was I mistaken?
When the discussion with Rick, he was talking about Department of Enterprise Services, DES.
So I found out, Commissioner Klaus, that DES owns the land, but Department of Ecology is leasing the building from them.
That's right.
And so there's just like, again, there's just a lot of threads to follow.
Okay. Thank you for the reminder. I did hear about that. Now that you mention it, it's been a little bit confusing with all of the different parties involved. I was out at the camp 2 days last week, I believe Friday and Saturday, just providing support to the folks who are still out there and kind of getting their perspective on what's going on. There's obviously a lot of confusion, not only on our part, but the residents of the camp are also very confused and pretty scared of what's going to happen. I tried to, I guess, loosely reassure them that what I was told is that they won't be physically removed, but they will be given a trespass notice or citation on Wednesday, so tomorrow. But I was told by some folks from Lacey City Council that they won't actually be physically removed or arrested. Of course, they are very skeptical of anything they're told that's not in writing, especially because of the notice that was posted on the trees out there at the camp. So I don't have any more updates on our end. I just have a few thoughts that haven't been shared yet about how this is actually impacting the residents of the camp, but I'm not sure how far you want me to go into that. I just can say that people are really unhappy. A number of people have already accepted the offer to take the referral to Maple Court. So a lot of the sites that used to be up are torn down, and it's looking pretty empty in there compared to what it has looked like. But I will say, like, one of the primary concerns of the residents at the camp is that this particular camp is the folks who live out there do not use opioids. It's like a very well-known amongst this community, well-known fact that this camp is not accepting of opioids. However, with Maple Court being a low barrier shelter, there are quite a few people there who are using opioids, and that was a big concern of the folks who accepted the referral to go to Maple Court, because they will now be surrounded by a substance that they worked so hard to avoid. There aren't very many camps that don't accept opioids whatsoever, and so this was one of them, and just that alone is pretty disappointing. But there are, of course, several components of this situation that are disappointing. Displacing individuals like this is going to be disheartening no matter how we do it. So this has been a very convoluted process, especially if the people at the table right now don't even understand what's going on and we're trying to wrap our heads around it. That says a lot about how this was organized and how it's playing out.
So our policies have created a situation where a camp is safer alternative for people that are trying to avoid opiates than the shelters we've created.
Low barrier.
In this situation, I would say that that is arguably true.
That's
Commissioner Forner, yes.
absolutely absurd to me.
Yeah, I agree. I do
So we
think the
got
low,
3 votes, let's do something about it.
well, the low barrier shelter is something that's needed. It's just, we need to be more considerate when we are sweeping encampments on how we do it and where people are going. Because in this case, if you have people who are not using opiates and they go to a place where they are surrounded by it, that's very harmful. Whereas the people who are at Maple Court, if they were on the streets surrounded by people who are using these substances, and then they have a roof over their head and they're still surrounded by the same substances, then that is not necessarily more dangerous. It really just depends on the situation of the people that you're moving.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so important that we consider the perspective of the people we're moving when we're doing something like this.
I'm just thinking logistically, and like, if you're trying to create a scenario that helps people get into better situations, you know, I mean, the resources, I think, you know, need to go towards people that are willing to, or able to, you know, make sure that they're, you know, that are doing their part. I don't know, it's just, I don't know, that scenario seems really unfortunate and absurd, but I don't know, I'm just kind of blown away.
So that's why I'm kind of again requesting that, you know, my request for the city of Lacey was wait until the regional housing council meets. I have asked our staff to see if there's any emergency funds, but you know, then with the notice posted over the weekend from Department of Enterprise Services, I just don't know exactly what's going on, and so that's why I thought maybe having a meeting between the chair of the board as well as the representative for the Regional Housing Council with the city of Lacey would be good, and then we as a board can also have a discussion on this tomorrow once we get more information.
We can go forward, and Commissioner Minzer has expressed willingness to reach out. However, as you may recall, Commissioner Mejia, when the conversation with Rick on Friday, he indicated that they could not wait, and that's why he talked about the process and that there was time for the Regional Housing Council to meet, that the dates could not be delayed, that they were locked in.
And is this a joint issue? I mean, it sounds like
This is
Lacey's-
not, this is a issue that is joint between the city of Lacey and the state of Washington.
Right.
And it's been in the works for 2 years.
How
They've
about a
been working on
weather-related
this.
issue could affect this, because we got weather coming.
We do have weather coming in, and the county has taken its normal steps to do a code blue and open shelters, and as we do every year.
And those are better alternatives than leaving people in the cold.
Absolutely, no one is suggesting we should leave people in the cold.
Okay, well, if I happen to be able to speak with somebody from Lacey, or is it what is the questions you want answered, Commissioner Mejia? I'm a little unclear, other than just trying to find out exactly what they intend to do tomorrow, so we have understanding of that.
Yeah, some clarification of, you know, who's doing the cleanup? Is it Department of Enterprise Services or is it the city of Lacey? And the notice on the 17th, like what exactly does that entail that Department of Service Enterprise, so DES is going to be doing? And those were, I think, the two main questions is, you know, should people still kind of hold on to the process of like the city of Lacey that they have to, you know, keep with the notice of trespassing, or is, you know, what's going to happen tomorrow kind of debunk that?
Kind of, how does, this is a question that I'm thinking of as listening to your description. How does this notice about what's going to happen tomorrow fit with the idea that the RHC is going to meet and maybe come to some conclusions? Like, how do those things fit? When is the RHC going to meet about this? Thursday?
No, so the Regional Housing Council's next meeting is the 24th, and that's why I had called Rick and asked, and while he did say, like, you know, we couldn't delay the process, he said the process took long enough where, you know, the Regional Housing Council would be able to kind of discuss this.
That's right.
And I have asked staff to add this to the agenda for the Regional Housing Council. So how this fits in is with those individuals that are still there is seeing if there's a possibility for a short-term solution because there is going to become, you know, part of the right-of-way is that there's going to become more units are going to become available in the coming weeks or month. And so just waiting for that. So how this fits in with the right-of-way is that while this has been in the works for 2 years, basically as Department of Commerce was working through this, they kind of rolled this encampment into the right-of-way program. And so with those beds becoming available soon, right, trying to roll those people into those into that housing situation in the future.
So it's my understanding, and please correct me if I don't get this right, that there are two groups, if you will, at this encampment. There are a group of 8 who have been on a list that have been, you know, part of the process for the last 2 years. Those 8 have been offered housing immediately. 6 have accepted. Then the rest of the group, and I didn't get clarity on how many the rest of these folks are. They have not been at the encampment for the length of time as the original 8. They have not been offered immediate housing, but this is the group that Commissioner Mejia is suggesting that the RHC develop an emergency plan to give them assistance until housing is available. And what Rick told us on Friday was that given the agreement that the city has with the state, they cannot change the dates, that they're moving forward with the 8, and that the rest would be trespassed, but that the trespass process takes many weeks, many being 4 to 6 weeks. They have to go to the court to get what's basically an eviction orders, then takes so long to get that, and that we're in this process. So I'm not sure where the cleanup notice from DES fits in, and that is apparently what we're needing to clarify. Grant Beck from the City of Lacey Planning and Development Services, he's the director, and Chief Almada will both be at the meeting, the board's briefing tomorrow on this topic.
Are any of them from Kansas City?
Don't know.
A bunch of them in the camp.
I don't know where they're from. We don't generally ask.
My commissioner items dovetail into this conversation nicely.
Okay, let's go to Commissioner Fournier's first item.
And this is just brief mentioning, and maybe I should have done it during the commission reports, but at the mayor's meeting on Friday, there were 2 topics that they wanted passed on, requests. One would be starting a discussion about establishing a professional director for the RHC. I don't know if that conversation has come up, but that was a request that we kind of lead a discussion on that. And then the other was just kind of more of a statement. It was just ensuring that there's diverse and adequate representation on the RHC that also includes the private sector. So that may be just a thought, but the first one I think could be a good discussion.
Can I offer some insight since I've been the representative for the Regional Housing Council.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'll tackle this last item first in terms of private sector representation. While there is not in the Regional Housing Council per se, there is private sector representation and the both advisory groups that make the recommendations for funding on projects for the Regional Housing Council. So there is the housing advisory group, and then there's the homeless advisory groups, and there is private sector members in both of those groups. So second item for that is in terms of hiring an executive or a person who leads this. This has been in the plans for a while. The Regional Housing Council just added a communications person last year, which was Elisa Sparkman, to kind of get a communications plan in order for the Regional Housing Council and items that are being worked on. We have discussed adding more staff in the future years. However, just with the uncertainty of funding, right, and different aspects of it, right, we have delayed that, but that's going to be a topic of discussion of what new positions are going to be added on at the Regional Housing Council retreat that's coming up in the coming months.
Okay. Commissioner Edwards, why don't we hit one of yours before we break?
I thought we were gonna go on a break. I was gonna discuss live streaming all of our meetings, but we can't even live stream this meeting.
We got it going.
Oh, we do? We're
Yeah,
going.
it was going.
Oh, we're up and
About
running.
5
Good.
minutes in, it started.
Well, the county manager, Commissioner, and I had a discussion about your topic, and one of the things that came up that I was not aware of is that we're about to convert to the meeting system that we keep talking about for the last few years. And that system has a function where it basically just transcribes every meeting. So it'll kind of moot, in my opinion, it'll moot out your concern to a large degree, because whether something's live streamed or not, there'll be a complete transcript. Every word that every commissioner utters, whether it's a planning session or commissioner thing, will be available in transcript form to any citizen that wants to read it.
Is that gonna be an immediate thing, or?
It's coming up,
6
and
weeks later, or what?
working with IT on trying to get what the timeline is for that project.
More to come, sounds like.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so it's 10:36. Let's take 10 minutes. We'll reconvene at 10:45 for our executive sessions. And then if there's time at the end for any additional commissioner items, we'll take them up then. Okay, thanks. Okay, we are back. It's 10:50. Back after a short recess for our agenda setting session for January 16th, 2024. The next item on today's agenda is an executive session pursuant to RCW 42301101 sub 1. We're actually going to have an executive session followed by a closed session followed by an executive session in order, and then we'll come back out to close the meeting, hopefully around noon. This first, so do I need to go through all of these? I'll go through all three, I guess. Okay, the first one will be to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. Specific topic is the Carrot Timber parcel. 30 minutes for that. Commissioner's action may follow. That will immediately be followed by a closed session pursuant to RCW 4230-144A, collective bargaining sessions with employee organizations, including contract negotiations, grievance meetings, and discussions related to the interpretation or application of a labor contract. This relates to a grievance issue, and it's going to be scheduled for approximately 15 minutes with commissioner's action potentially following. And then finally, an executive session pursuant to RCW 4230-121G to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee. This relates to clerk of the board applicants. 15 minutes is scheduled and commissioner's action may follow. So with that, we're going to go into our three sessions and back out at approximately noon. What has to happen now?
Rob is closing.
This meeting, this recording.
Leaving the live stream.
Okay, we are out of the three executive and closed sessions. It is 11:58 a.m. And I said we were coming out at 12. Should we wait till 12? Do we have to wait till 12 to come close it off?
Supposed to, we only have.
Okay, well, I'll take this last minute just to say that no commissioner formal action is following these items. Discussion was had, and there'll be follow-up on the first item related to the Carrot Timber parcel, and that's about it. We're gonna close things off at noon, and we will be back at 3:30 for a public hearing on the agricultural code update. Just gonna wait one more minute, because I think we're supposed to by law before we close out.
Right. Do. So I do have one last item for the board's consideration, once the minute is up. And we're close enough,
Okay.
don't you think?
Yep.
All right, so there's a letter before you. I received it this morning from the city of Olympia. They are asking that they drafted this letter for your consideration. They are applying for a grant from the NOAA Climate Resilience Regional Challenge for restoring the Deschutes Estuary and building community resilience in South Puget Sound. City of Olympia is asking if the board would allow Commissioner to sign on your behalf, Commissioner Mensah, as the chair of the board, in support of their grant. So we can certainly.
I know a little bit about this. This is a really exciting opportunity where these grants are significant, like up to $75 million. And we were we had to submit, and then they vetted out, and we're part of the group, the finalist group that can potentially receive this. All the work that Olympia and the Sea Level Rise Collaborative has done to lay out a plan is now benefiting us because we can show exactly what we would do with this money and how it's going to go towards sea level rise resilience planning that the collaboratives and county is now part of that ex officio. So anyway, it would be awesome to receive this money.
What is this 2.8 million in county funds that I didn't know?
I haven't read this letter, so I don't know.
I didn't know either. I'm just now reading the letter. Came in this morning. It's got a tight turnaround.
Is that total, a total amount that we would spend on, remember?
Maybe they're talking about the county
Share
alliance
toward the
rather
funding
than
and governance for
the
the.
county's funding. I would clarify that before it goes, because I don't want to make a commitment.
They're talking about the sediment management in Capitol Lake, and, our share of that was whatever it was, $200,000, $300,000 a year, and if over a course of however many years, 30 years or something, that's probably exactly where that number comes from. So it's how much the county has already committed to Capitol Lake over the lifetime of that project.
That county being
Thurston County.
Thurston County and Olympia?
No. Don't you remember the funding and governance structure for sediment
I
management?
do, and I remember it not being any money that the county was putting into it.
Oh, no, we've had our share. Our share was 5% of the total.
That's what it says, yeah. This includes.
We were talking about using.
I'll need to look back because I don't recall.
I mean, they're just coming up with a big sounding number, and that's the total. It was 150, 250 something a year was the county's piece, added up over year. I can't remember the time horizon.
I just need to look back.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll look at that letter if I have any concerns, but I guess I'm supportive of
Everyone's
it
good
because
with it.
would be awesome for the region to have this grant.
Yep, I see one thumb up, thumbs up.
Commissioner Klaus?
Are you good with that, Commissioner Klaus?
Yes, that sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. That's what I had.
Any other commissioner items we have to take up before we adjourn? Commissioner Edwards had to excuse himself. Okay, we'll see everybody back at 3:30. We're adjourned.